here with Katherine Clarke, who had a story in our April issue on the spec mansion craze that's sweeping LA with developers asking record prices for spec mansions. So Kathy, how did you first start noticing this trend of spec mansion development?
Well, I think there have been a couple of big headlines over the past few months. Everyone's been talking about this sort of $500 million mansion on steroids that Niall Naimi is building. And then I think a month or 2 months ago, Bruce Makowski put another spec mansion on the market for $250 million, which is, I think, the most expensive home in America right now. So it made me think, like, what's really going on behind these crazy numbers? You know, how are developers financing these things? Where are these buyers coming from? Are they being overly optimistic? So we kind of decided to dig into the background of those stories a little bit more.
What happens on the dark side of that? Did you find anything in your reporting that indicated people are losing lots of money on these bets?
Well, what's interesting is you really can't sell these properties until they're built. You know, it's not like building a condo project or, you know, a smaller single family home where you can sell off spec. No one is gonna write a $250 million check until they've physically seen a property, walked it, felt the magic. So it's on these spec home developers to really put all the money up front. The level of risk for these developers is really entirely on a case-by-case basis. Really depends on how they're financing these projects, how long they can afford to hold them on their books. So we saw some developers who were financing it with traditional loans and other developers like Makowski who are financing it entirely off of their own personal balance sheet. Traditional banks don't necessarily want to, you know, bet the farm on the fact that these very high net worth individuals are coming. You know, with Trump in office, are we going to see, you know, foreign investors behaving differently? Are we going to see, you know, more Russian capital, less Chinese capital? No one really has a handle on what's going on yet. So it's kind of better to sit on the sidelines if you're a traditional bank or someone that has to, you know, answer to shareholders or anything like that.
You mentioned Robert Quig in your story, so it seems like, you know, that there's a lot of risk and a lot of people have been, Makowski has been famously successful with spec mansions, but, you know, sometimes it doesn't go so well.
Yeah, there definitely is an underbelly, and, you know, Robert Quig was someone who built, I think, you know, 10 to 15 mansions over the last, you know, 5 years or so, and he put some of his own money in, but he also brought on investors and lenders. And it didn't go so well. He, you know, probably was over leveraged, and a lot of these properties weren't even completed and when the bank took back possession of them. So now we're seeing some of those hit the market as unfinished spec homes. So we may see either developers or end users coming in and getting a better price for those, which could, you know, in turn bring down the values of spec mansions overall.
It seems like these projects, the pricing on them it began to skyrocket more after the Playboy Mansion sale. And, you know, Darren Metropolis bought that property and then his brother bought that Shiguri mansion. But that one saw a price cut. And I'm wondering, you know, are we seeing both sides?
Yeah, it's a very sort of unpredictable market, I think. I think the Shiguri sale was very idiosyncratic in that the seller, who was, you know, famously this big Clinton donor, he was accused of funneling money into terrorism or some kind of, you know, shady business, and he wasn't actually allowed to enter the country at the time of the sale. So there was some speculation that the buyer of that, who is the brother of Darren Metropolis, the Playboy Mansion owner, may have gotten sort of a sweetheart deal on that for taking it off his hands. The spec mansion trend, as it were, people are saying it kind of kicked off with Makowski's own mansion on Hillcrest that was purchased by the creator of Minecraft,
Marcus Pearson.
So he paid $70 million for that property, and, you know, when that sale hit records, people were really looking at that sale and saying, people will pay $70 million for a mansion in LA? When did that happen?
It's so interesting to have a newly minted wealthy person buying the spec mansion that set off this craze. You know, Marcus, in your story, you mentioned that you know, he didn't come for money and said something like, when I have money, I'm going to spend it. And so I'm wondering, you know, the teams of brokers that get together to market these properties to the world's wealthiest, are they looking for the next Marcus Pearson? Is it new money that they're after? Do you get a sense of that?
Well, one of the brokers I talked to said something that I find really funny, which was that they are specifically targeting people who own 300-foot yachts. So it doesn't matter where they're from, it doesn't matter how they made their money, they just want to target people who clearly are not averse to spending crazy amounts of money on luxurious things.